Good evening, everyone. To the students in the classroom with me here at the Foundation, and good evening to you online who are joining us for our Wednesday night class with Guy Finley. My name is John. I'll be the host for our class tonight. I have a special note for those in the room and those of you online for our class tonight, and that is that throughout the day today, we've experienced some technical difficulties, occasional power outages throughout the day, and we hope that we have resolved those issues and that our class can go as planned. But should the power go out, we encourage you online, please stay connected. Do your best to log back in. At worst, we will continue to broadcast, and those of you on Facebook and YouTube, you can join us at GoToWebinar by signing up at guyfinley.org/class, and we will make sure that that is running throughout the broadcast tonight, but we'll keep our fingers crossed and we'll have a class together. If you're new, our agenda, as I said, if all things go well, is Guy will give a talk for about 60 minutes, and then we'll take a short break. And we'll come back for a Q&A session with Guy. And so you can participate by sending in your written questions and comments on Facebook and YouTube and GoToWebinar, and we'll just roll those into the conversation and discussion here. So hope you'll participate. Finally, for those of you in the room, if you have a cell phone, just check, please, and make sure you've turned it off. We're ready to begin. This is our topic for this evening. Anchor yourself in the world above anger, fear, and worry.
Good evening. Good evening to all of you, wherever you are in the world, whatever day or time it is. I'm glad you're here. You're in a place where you can learn something that can literally make the difference between whether your life is spent trying to avoid pain or whether or not you learn to use the experience of yourself every single moment to not just discover the possibility, but to enter into the promise of a world that is quite literally above worry, fear, and pain. I don't know how clear it is to you, and of course, I do understand that we don't want it clear to ourselves. The extent of the stress and anxiety of the suffering that we experience every single day, but by and large never know directly the experience of it because there is something in us that's always acting as a buffer to it, something always distracting us from that pain, from that anxiety, from that sense of inadequacy, loneliness, whatever may be your favorite dark drink of the moment. And I can't and would never try to convince you of anything. But I can tell you certain things that I do know beyond the shadow of a doubt. And I know that men and women who are fair weather explorers never get outside the harbor of themselves, ever. And what you seek is outside of yourself, even though it is found only within yourself. And our whole mechanical, unconscious inclination is to dock somewhere where whatever the unwanted moment, the feeling of it, whatever it may be that's taking place, that we just don't want to experience that. That when you pull into that harbor to escape what you think is the storm of some activity, a world around you pushing in, pressing you, that when you do everything you can to escape it, you do not escape anything. You ensure that you will meet that moment again and again and again and again, until, by the grace of God, although most of us don't actually think this is grace, that lesson comes back and back and back again, until finally you realize the safety that you're looking for is not you anchored somewhere in a familiar harbor of thoughts and feelings. The safety you're looking for exists far out at sea, and that's spelled S-E-A and S-E-E at the same time. Do you know when your work really takes a change, a real turn, where your work really takes a turn in the right direction? When you realize that you can't avoid yourself. That's when it really begins to take a turn in a direction that you could have never given yourself, because your direction is always to avoid yourself. That's when it really makes a turn. And that's what we're going to look at a little bit. Every talk that we have, if you're just joining us for the first time, every meeting we have has the singular purpose of introducing to our minds, asleep as they are most of the time, certain insights and revelations that make it possible for the split second that insight is presented for you to see inside of your own consciousness. Our consciousness does not want to see itself. It wants to see everything that explains itself to itself. It doesn't want to see its incessant need for explanations. An aspirant must get to the place in their life where they realize, what I need to do is not have another explanation for whatever it is that's come over me. What I need in this moment is to understand, why am I always being taken over by something, so that I can begin to bring my attention into that consciousness to explore in that moment its activity, the content of it. Because nothing can happen until that happens. So I want to bring you in. I want to give you a moment where, by the grace of God, if I do my work properly and you do your work properly, you may have some sudden little bit of an insight. That's all it takes. Where you can see, and it always is, where you can see the pattern, where you can see the self-defeating activity of a mind that always blames its feeling of being defeated on something outside of itself, because that's what it does. It never considers the possibility that it has created and staged for itself a situation that the moment it goes into it, it is guaranteed to fail. Because that mind wants to struggle with life instead of see that there is another way to see life that liberates you from all useless struggle altogether. So, how do we do that? Are you interested? Take a deep breath. We're going to go see the good doctor. Get a pen and pencil ready, because his prescriptions are like none other. So if you've never joined me before, we have a character that runs through stories for, almost as long as I've been talking, if not the same length. Her name is Christine, and she is an aspirant like yourself, like the speaker, an explorer of a sort. And she's coming to a point in her life, as I would hope would be true for you, where she starts to understand, you know, I go out so far with this exploration, but then I get kind of buffeted around and problems and this, and then I always invariably think to myself, well, I better get back to some kind of safety. Or I don't even think to myself I need to. I just found myself in a bar with an umbrella and a glass somewhere on shore, and my boat is tied up somewhere. I don't know how I got there. And then I realized, how did I get back to the same place that I left? Why in the name of God would I return to some place that I know I've returned to 1,000,000 times, and I keep coming back there? What in the name of God is going on? This is where she is in her work. She's reached a certain level of understanding, and she goes to see the doctor every time she wants to deepen her understanding. You are invited every single time you are aware of your own suffering to visit the interior good celestial doctor, whose sole intention is to introduce you to insights that will liberate you from the presently unconscious relationship you have with your own consciousness. He, it, she, they, logos, Dios, it's never not there. God, what if you knew that from yourself? And it's always in the moment where you are the least interested in any kind of diagnosis, let a prescription, that you get the most value from that visitation. That's why I say fair weather explorers never get outside the harbor of this unconscious nature. They just think they do. They dream they're someplace. If you want a real life, you have to wake up. You have to wake up, not dream anymore. And you dream every single time that you believe you can escape the experience of yourself by imagining or going or doing something that's going to momentarily relieve you from the pressure, the stress, the anxiety of being yourself. So Christine goes to see the doctor. He's a nice fellow. Hi, doc. She knows him a long time. It's kind of like a good uncle. What can I do for you? Well, I've come to another, I don't know what it is, another one of those points that I can't seem to get beyond, and I have struggled. I wouldn't come to you if I haven't. He said, well, tell me what's going on. Well, it's kind of hard to describe, but she said, I tell you a few things for sure. Sometimes I'm worn out at the end of the day in ways I can't even explain to you. I'm just spent. And sometimes I wake up worn out. Now, how can I wake up worn out? How can I wake up not wanting a day that, at least inwardly, I understand has been prepared for me? Your days are prepared for you. There isn't a day of your life that isn't prepared for you. And it was prepared for you from the beginning of time, quite literally. And you were brought into this world to discover that something has indeed prepared the day for you, so that in your preparation to receive what the day brings, you might conceive of something, a new relationship with that life. Now, he didn't say all that, but I'm saying it to you. What else he said? Well, I feel like I'm losing my mind a little bit. Well, how so? She says, well, wait a minute, I'm dreading. I'm just full of dread. I can't even bear to think about what's coming. And then I don't know what happens. A moment later, I'm bouncing off the wall. I'm excited about stuff. She said, am I losing my mind? He said, you never had it yet. That's why you're here. What else? I bounce back and forth between the past and the future, enjoying some things, regretting some things in the past, and trying to figure out how my future can make all that better. She said, I just don't know what to do. Can you help me, doctor? Oh, I'm pretty sure I can. And in the interest of moving along, although I do want you to play your part in the story, okay? Humor me. I don't think I need any tests. Good. They're getting more and more expensive, if you haven't noticed. She said, well, what's going on? He said, I'm pretty sure that you have a fairly chronic case of, hang on, Tabadsiome. Tabadsiome. Yes. Yes, you have Tabadsiom. And of course, she doesn't have a clue what Tabadsiom is. I know you don't either, by the way. And if one of you could tell me what it was, I'd leave my chair and go sit in that. In fact, I'd just go home if one of you could tell me. Tabadsiom. Oh my God, what is it?
Is it fatal?
Thank you, John. Is it fatal? As a matter of fact, the good doctor said to Christine, it is. It's fatal in the sense that it steals from you the vital forces that you need. Not just to live as a natural, healthy human being, but the vital forces that you need, and I know that you are seeking, Christine, so that you might become a different kind of human being. Because without those forces that are being squandered by Tabadsiom syndrome, there's no chance. Well, finally she can't take it. She says, well, come on.
What do I do?
No. You can't ask what to do until you know what it is. Jeez, thank you. She said, what is Tabadsiom, she said. He said, it means taken over by a different cause every other moment. Taken over by a different cause every other moment. Now, he didn't say it like I'm saying it to you. She says, I'm not sure. We're taken over by a different cause every other moment. He said, well, didn't you just say to me that you dread one moment and then the next moment you're excited about one? How can you, who was full of dread and who's excited? Who visits the past and doesn't want to find what they get there and then decides it's going to visit a future, well, things will be better. What is going on inside of a human being where they are taken over and over again by some thought, some image that becomes the cause, the motive of their life in that moment, where everything about their life rotates around, orbits that particular cause, whatever it might be. Now do you understand Tabadsiom? Taken over by a different cause every other moment. Sweet God, I pray that one day you understand how every moment of your life is given over to whatever your mind falls on in that moment. And it's not you who chooses the cause that is consuming your life. That's what we're going to look at. We're going to prove that to ourselves, if you're interested. So I thought before we went on, we like to build lists and work together on Wednesday nights. I would ask you, and we can bring up that heading if you will, what was one of the causes that took you over today? You understand the question, don't you? What was one of the causes that took you over today? For instance, one of my causes was I started thinking about this person and I had to figure out what to do about them. That's a cause, isn't it? One of the causes that I suddenly was filled with this resentment over what someone did or didn't do 2 minutes ago, and my cause was the guy that cut me off on the freeway. My cause was what? What were some of the causes that you took you over today? Anybody? Leah?
Packing for a trip. Packing.
Oh, I was taken over with not packing for a trip. Making sure that on the trip I had everything I needed to be trippy. Yeah, I want to make sure I'm completely comfortable, I'm going to look my best, and there'll be no questions when I get there. So I have to take basically everything I own. Then I spend my life sorting through all of that crud, trying to figure out how I can be at peace when I'm on fire, trying to figure out how I can be free when I get there. There is no free that you find when you get there, by the way. Who else? Chris?
Trying to get one more thing done, rushing.
That's such a big one. My cause is whatever this moment tells me is the cause, and I've got to get through it. Because why? Because I have other causes waiting behind this cause. Yes or no? Please? Over in the room, up in the world, wherever you are, in the internet world somewhere, you're invited. I urge you to join us. What are some of the causes in your life that take you over on a daily basis? And by the way, aren't they circular? Who else has one? John in the back. Rushing. I find myself rushing. And why am I rushing? What causes me to rush? Something is telling me that if I don't rush and get to this and through this, something will be lost. I won't gain something. Basically, fear of missing out. Fear becomes my cause. Yes or no? Katie, nobody's posting anything, huh? I don't know where you're. Maybe I'm on the wrong page again. Oh, I am. I've got you and Chris up here. Sorry, let me go over. Okay. Rebecca says, one of the causes today was frustration. That's a pretty big one, isn't it? I'm kind of happy I'm calling somebody to make an airline reservation or to take care of some business, and I can't do it. And my computer keeps kicking me out. And then I talk to somebody who apparently never learned English. I don't know what to do. I'm so frustrated. And by the way, when my cause is to get through that, what happens when I don't get through? Nikki, how do I say what I really think and not start a fight? My cause is trying to figure out how to get you to be and do what I need you to be and do. Do you not spend time thinking about how you can move other people to be moved in your favor? Yes or not? Yes. Okay. On the board, Randall, that's a big one. I won't be able to handle this problem at work. A cause is suddenly I feel inadequate to whatever my mind is imagining is coming. So my cause is to protect myself, listen to this, from what I've imagined. Please? Still in the room, anybody? Ellen.
Justifying
myself. By the way, some of us have favorite causes. One of my favorite causes is justifying myself, explaining myself to myself, or, God help me, to others. Always apologizing with the very tone of my voice so that no one gets irritated with me. So my cause is to not be rejected wherever I go. Yes or no? On the board, my cause was how disappointed I am with people or someone. And of course, and we're going to get to this, Jason, all of these causes are connected to desires. There is no cause that you have of the moment that isn't related directly to, inseparable from, in many ways, some desire that you're not present to in that moment. Tony, I come home from a long day's work and my partner hasn't fed the dog or cleared up his day-long mess in the kitchen, and he's about to leave on a trip. Grr. Yeah, Linda, fixing problems. I'm a problem fixer. The only thing is that I'm fixed with this obsession that constantly becomes my cause of the moment, and my life just runs by, doesn't it? Anybody else in the room? Because I'm Roger. My cause is to make sure everybody likes me. I mean, I don't want anybody to not like me, so my cause is do what I have to do to get them to like me. On the board, work deadlines, we covered that one. So little time, so much to do. Janice wrote, all of the above. Yes, justifying my position, grievances towards others. How about the cause of me understanding what's wrong with the world and nobody else understands? And if I could just get everybody behind my cause, then everything would be great. You know what you get when you get everybody behind your cause? You get everybody else to be behind their cause, and that's called constant conflict, which is just, by the way, a reflection of this consciousness that is always in conflict with itself that we're about to look at. Okay, so we covered all the causes pretty well, didn't we? Anybody, if you think of any, you can come up with it. So what did we say? Taken over by a different cause every other moment. I want you to think of a happy dog. And the reason the dog's happy is because he got off the leash. Now, what is a happy dog? What makes that dog happy when it gets off the leash? Anybody? Freedom. But what is it free to do? Well, John, it is free to go and visit anything that draws it to it. Doesn't matter what it is, be the funkiest thing in the world. I'm free. I'm going there. I'm drawn to it. You know, like the fire hydrant. I'm drawn to what my nature as a dog is drawn to. Bushes, trees, other dogs. And I'm wild, crazy and wild and free. Why? Because in those moments, I am allowed to fulfill what my nature wants for itself through its attraction to whatever it is that it wants in that moment. So, summary, it's tempted to run after and do what it does according to its nature. Yes or no? And its nature cannot be separated from what it is unconsciously, mechanically attracted to. Yes or no? Now, how many of you think you're better than a dog? Yes, you do. You can deny it all day long, and I hope to God that you don't. You and I are drawn to what we want. And the only leash we have, by the way, is the social convention, the morality of some religious idea. That's our leash. And if it weren't for that leash, we would be running as wild as any other creature doing what we do. But for fear of not being approved or our own corrupted morality, our conscience saying that's not the right thing to do. So our leash is always fear. But you remove that leash called fear, and what happens? I'm drawn, am I not, to whatever it is that I find myself doing in that moment. I am drawn to whatever I am doing in that moment. I want you to see it, yes or no. Well, what if what I'm drawn to in that moment is something that I am absolutely hating? Now let it sink in. I'm drawn to a moment that I completely resist. Please see it with me. If I am drawn to a moment I resist, if I resist it, why am I spending time there? Why am I involved in my anger with you or my fear about tomorrow? Why am I nervous about where I'm going or what might happen to me? If I'm drawn to this moment and I don't want anything from it, then I just don't have anything to do with it. But when I resist a moment, am I free of that moment I'm resisting, or am I inexorably drawn to it by my own resistance? This is an important question. See, we don't want to take any responsibility for the fact that our attention goes to moments that when it goes there, that attention says, I don't want this moment, failing to see that my attention is on what I don't want, and that's my experience of the moment. Do you see it? Why am I drawn to the moments I don't want? See, you believe that you don't want to be afraid. Do you not? You believe you don't want fear in your life. Don't you believe you don't want enemies? Yes or no? Then why is it every day you have fear and enemies? And you do. You believe you want to be free of resentment, don't you? You want to be a loving person? Why is it that every single day you are drawn to think about or get involved in those places and people in your lives that when you go there, you are full of the resistance to them, believing that your resistance proves you weren't drawn to them, they came to you and did something terrible to you. And it's their fault for the pain that you're in. It's their fault for what you are attending to. God, please hear that. It's your fault that I'm attending to how much I'm angry at you. It's your fault that I'm attending to my worry about tomorrow because you said something and it shook this up and now I don't know what else to do. So I'm attending to the moment that I say I have no responsibility in, but that you caused me to have. Nobody causes you to go through anything. Nobody causes you to go through anything. You bring to that moment a part of your nature that is drawn to that moment and makes that moment its cause. Were you able to put all that together with me? Now think for a moment, because this isn't bad. Isn't it, first, beautiful, second, plausible, third, entirely possible that somehow or other karma is so perfect because I get from what I'm drawn to exactly the experience of the consciousness that drew me to it. And if I didn't experience the consciousness that drew me to what I don't want, I would never know there was something in me that can't wait to give its attention to what it says it doesn't want to go through. When are you going to see you spend all of your time wishing that other things were happening than the moment you're in? Do you not? And then we think to ourselves, my new cause is to figure out why this moment that I don't want is still here. So my cause is to make a plan. Now, can I make a plan to escape some conflict I'm in that isn't rooted in the consciousness that has produced that conflict? It is that consciousness in conflict that produces plans to liberate itself from what it is drawn to relive over and over again, because that's how it derives this familiar sense of self. Everybody still tracking with me? It's perfect karma. It's a grace of God that I get a chance to see my mind is drawn to revisit somewhere where I was a victim. My mind is drawn to think about what might go wrong. My mind is drawn to all of these different things, and my whole life, every time I've been drawn like a dog, a donkey, to a bale of hay, I blame the hay or the bone instead of realizing my nature, this present nature, is drawn to what delights it. And it delights in being in conflict. You see, this is what's so hard about true spiritual teachings, is that I have to sit and try to help you understand what nothing in you actually wants to understand. Because who wants to believe for a split second that I'm drawn like a moth to a lamp when it comes to my mind is always involved in a different cause every time a condition changes. So as the conditions change, it triggers something in this conditioned consciousness. And when the consciousness that's conditioned is triggered by the moment that it doesn't want, it came into that moment already sure that it needed something else, that when that consciousness is triggered by that moment, then that moment that it doesn't want or that it does becomes its cause. And as soon as that's dealt with, which it's never dealt with because it keeps coming back, there's another cause, and another cause, and another cause, and a human being spends his or her life asleep, always entertaining what they believe is their cause of the moment, when there's no you there that has presented that cause, let alone drawn you to it. To do what? To figure out what to do. My cause is to basically, summarizing this, the principal cause of my life is to avoid and escape any form of suffering. I mean, you can just blanket all of that into one giant cause, can you not? And this consciousness can't see that the more it visits what it doesn't want, the more time it spends there. Do you have a relative you don't like? Do you think to yourself, I can't wait, go visit this person? There is a part of our consciousness that we have no idea of at all that is constantly at work behind the scenes. So now take a deep breath, a little transition. You know this part. If you're just here for the first time, you'll hear the students in the room. You might know it yourself. We're going to build on this. As goes my attention, as goes my attention, as goes my attention, so comes my experience. We understand that to be true. Basically speaking, my attention is what? What is my attention, basically speaking? My attention is what I attend to each moment. And what I attend to each moment, I think while I'm attending to it, I chose to attend to that. After all, why would I attend to something if I didn't choose it? But the task here is to understand that this attention that takes place in that moment is little more than an unconscious effect of what I have found myself attracted to or denying in that moment. In other words, my attention goes to this particular problem. Now, how do I say this to you? Here's this moment that I find troubling, and suddenly I'm dealing with the trouble. And I believe that in that moment, I have to serve this cause. And what I'm trying to convey is that my attention goes to what my consciousness puts it on when that consciousness has been triggered by a condition that it doesn't want. So that it's not my attention at all. Look, you either see it or you don't. How many of you know that you have the attention span of a gnat? Because that's what we have. And why is that saying popular? Because every buzzing sound, every trigger, every noise, every condition that comes along, and they come flowing downstream, if you will, every last one of them, tend to that. And then I'm attending to that, and then something else goes on inside. A thought says, well, what about this? I tend to that. And I've completely forgotten what I was doing over here. Now the cause of the moment is what I'm attending to. And then I'm busy doing that, and I maybe get it straightened out, or it gets worse. And then my attention, my cause becomes the frustration I feel over how I can't get this done. And as my attention goes to that frustration presents a new cause that says, well, here's how to be free. Just throw your hands up in the air and walk away from all of this. Can you see how it goes? We talked about this on Sunday. Cause and effect, a singularity, not separate events in time. So that all the time I am trying to, with my mind that has been triggered into resisting or attracted to something, I'm trying to change or control or escape whatever the particular form of myself is that's fashioned by that event. And how does that happen? Again, we're drilling down a little bit. We walk around with, one day you'll be stunned. I can't even say that we yet. I can't even say the word we. This consciousness, this unconscious nature, goes through this life, or more accurately, this life passes through this unconscious nature. And this unconscious nature, almost the entirety of it, is a body of conditioned desires. A body of thoughts and feelings that are there prior to the condition that suddenly stirs them from their dormant state in the darkness. And when that particular I is stirred, that particular desire, there is no desire that you have, want or not want, that doesn't have its attending I. Every desire or undesire, same thing that you and I have, is replete with a certain sense of oneself, an I that lives inside of this unconscious nature. That's what Christ called legion. This legion consciousness, unconscious nature, is always in the background. It's not present at all. We have no awareness of the fact that you're going to say the smallest thing to me and I'm going to fly off the handle. I'm going to get the smallest bit of news and I'm going to get depressed or I'm going to get excited. Makes no difference. And why is that? Because something laying dormant in the darkness of this consciousness, a certain I, built up over time, innumerable, developed through experiences that were never processed, produce a feeling of self. And all of these various I's, all of these desires sit down in the murkiness of this shadowy self, and something triggers it. And when it does, it pops up. Now, when it pops up, it doesn't pop up thinking, well, what happened? It pops up because it knows what has happened, meaning it knows it wants this or it doesn't want that. That's what it knows instantaneously. Yes or no? Instantaneously, it knows that's good, that's bad. That's right, that's wrong. There's no you that thinks it. it appears already formed and fully functioning in terms of commanding your attention to deal with what it says you have to attend to. This is important information. And when that I pops up, that sense of self that is already formed, what does it mean it's already formed? It's already conditioned. It already knows that people should never be like that. It already knows that moments should move this way, not that way. It knows all of these things, and you don't know a thing about it. And when it appears because a condition, and when I say a condition, this unconscious nature has separated the world outside from the world inside. They are not separate at all. Everything that triggers this consciousness is, in one sense or another, this consciousness suddenly being stirred into a momentary awakening to itself, that when it does, it doesn't want to see or know what it has been awakened to. Then it's already formed for it to then to do what? Begin thinking about, well, I have to find a way to deal with what just happened because if I don't, I'm going to suffer. And what we don't see in that moment is that we are suffering, and that's what's produced the cause, the desire that we have to get out of that moment. We are already suffering in the moment where it's trying to figure out how to escape what it blames as the cause for itself. Everybody still following me? All of that's unknown. And our effort in being able to diagnose the cause of this conflict is what? What's behind the effort? If I can understand the cause, I can change or control it. Yes or no? That's how we see it. And I'm trying to get you to see that it isn't that you can understand, change, or control the cause of that moment, because your experience of that moment is the effect of something. You are the effect of an unwanted moment. You are not the one being acted on. You are the effect of it. An effect cannot control anything. An effect cannot change anything. Effects give rise to cause, which is exactly what happens. When I'm affected, I try to control something. When I try to control something, I produce another desire. That desire in turn produces a second force. I get it back. And so that effect turns into cause, that cause into effect. And I go around and around going absolutely nowhere, failing to understand that the temporary, what did I say it was? To bad seum, the temporary taken over by a different cause every other moment. If nothing else, God, don't you want to be a constant human being? You know why people, basically, you know why people avoid you or you avoid people? Because that relationship is this flood of cause and effect where I believe you have caused me to experience this effect. You have not caused me to experience this effect. You have brought this effect out of me. And when you bring it out of me, I don't know what to do with it because I've had a cause for 1,000 years not to be this kind of person, and I'm still this kind of person. So my solution to the imagined cause is to avoid everyone and everything that produces this effect in me. And if you're understanding this at all, that means that we live without knowing it in mortal fear of an effect, because we don't understand that consciousness and how it is forever attending to a different cause, because every time it can have a different cause, it can have a different sense of itself, and it just goes on and on, going nowhere at all. Nice deep breath. We're going to make a transition. that I, let's explain that. Maybe we're not used to that language. Suddenly, something's happened, and there is this I'm taken over again by another seemingly different cause. At first, my cause was this. My cause was just to get up and have my breakfast. And then I found out that somebody drank all the cream or something, and my cause becomes resentment. Why can't they replace with it? I mean, you understand that. And then I'm no more sitting there begrudging myself for my poor me. Then I look at the news, or I pick up look at my email, and then I have another cause. Because things have gone badly here, or somebody said this was pretty good. Would I like to go do that? Oh yeah, I want to go do that. Now I have that cause. And then I start thinking about what it is that I want to go do, and then I think, well, I don't know if I have the money to go do that. Now I have another cause. It just goes on forever, doesn't it? Every one of those moments of being taken over by a different cause is the same as the appearance of an I that doesn't know anything about itself at all, and that I don't know anything about. Please try to follow this. I don't know anything about all of these I's in myself. Because every I, when it appears, every one of these different sense of myself that's triggered by something, and then it has its cause, it's complete. That I is complete in its own world, because it is perfectly decided that this is good and this is bad, and that its cause is to correct whatever it is or collect whatever it needs to get straight. So it is whole unto itself. That's what spiritual sleep is the consistent identification with a particular I that appears in the moment, that is so full and complete through its associations of past circumstances that it doesn't have any doubt at all about good or bad, what to do or not. It's complete. But that I disappears the split second another cause comes in. And it doesn't know it disappears, and the I that replaced it doesn't know it's appeared. How many of you know mercurial people? You know what I'm talking about. And you judge them, don't you? God, you never know who you're going to be talking to. Well, guess who's saying that? Every judgment of a human being is because they have caused a fear or a threat inside of you that in turn produces a sense of I that knows exactly what's wrong with that person. And that I has no doubt about its judgment. And that I cannot see that when the next condition comes along, the pizza truck goes by. They don't have pizza trucks that go by, do they? The ice cream truck goes by, whatever it is. I'm dreaming. A pizza, and it goes dee, 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 and you go, oh, pizza. And then the pain of that moment is gone, and it's replaced by the pleasure of the cause. I'm going to eat something that's going to get rid of my pain for a moment. And then I eat the pizza, and I shouldn't eat the pizza, and then my cause becomes, I'm such a pig. I'm so bad that I do these things. What's wrong with me? Then I've got that cause, and no more involved in that cause, and it says, next cause, find a gym, or it says, never exercise again. But the point being, it just goes on and on and on, doesn't it? Each and every one of those I's is a temporary manifestation made in the image of the unconscious nature that created it. Each and every one of these I's is an unconscious image made in the image of the consciousness that, look, have you ever seen a donut machine? A donut machine, this dough goes in and it plop, and it just goes along and drops it into this grease. Sorry, I got caught thinking about a donut. That's exactly what this consciousness is like. Every condition that grabs its attention grabs the attention of a certain I that was asleep in that consciousness. That's what is grabbed, not you. Some content, old content, incomplete experience is grabbed, and then it's just plop, sizzle, 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 plop, sizzle, 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 plop, sizzle, and it just goes on like that. And we're never aware of it because we have the smell of the donut. We have the anticipation or the regret for eating a dozen donuts at a time, whatever it might be. So that I want this to get across that consciousness is forever in the image of that which sustains that, and we're the instrument, the unwitting instrument of that consciousness. A consciousness that attends to whatever it wants to attend to. And it never attends to anything that in the moment of its attention, it hasn't made that its cause. Do you understand why spiritual progress is so slow? Let alone why human beings are so indolent, so unsuccessful, so easily distracted. And I'm distracted because a certain thing happens and I feel this, I don't want to go do that. I'm not interested in that. I don't want to do my spiritual work. I don't want to do anything. All I want to do is just eat and sleep and drink, and travel. That's all. Just let me do that. I'll be happy for the rest of my life. No, you won't. You'll be the same miserable human being you are now because that consciousness never stops creating a cause for itself that it can then run after in time and free itself from. So that cause cannot be separated from time. Another advent here. Time is always involved in every cause this mind comes up with, is it not? Because every cause I have has a promise of freedom downstream. That I'll be whole and complete when. Now, if you're understanding that, then you understand that this consciousness consistently attempts in vain to escape the real cause of its pain. That's what it does. Every cause that it comes up with is a way in which to avoid seeing that it is a cause maker. It is a conflict-filled nature that has to have a cause that it can deal with in time instead of seeing the conflict that it's in that produces that cause. Please? As long as we have a different cause of the moment. Now, hang on. This is a little, I hope the rest wasn't too deep. This is deep. As long as you and I have a different cause every moment of our life, we will never, ever awaken. It's impossible. That's how serious what I'm describing to you is. If I have a cause, a different cause every moment, then I will be serving the consciousness that produces that cause out of its desire of wanting or not wanting the condition it's reacting to. Hope that was clear. And since conditions are always changing, this consciousness is in a forever chameleon-like state, coming up with the next cause and the next cause and the next cause, as opposed to what it is that we're looking at. Because if you'll see this, if I have a new cause, am I not dependent upon successfully achieving that cause? Am I not? So every one of these causes comes with dependency. I am attached to and identified with this cause and believing that if I could just get through this, that's how solid that I seems. If I could just get through this, then I'd be over the pain, listen, of this attachment and dependency I have to this idea. Except for one problem. It can't do that. It just comes up with the next one. Have you grasped some of what we're talking about? Let me bring up the key lesson, because now we're going to talk about exercise and solution. Stillness is the first action of truth. Stillness is the first action of truth. Stillness has no momentum, which means it never runs into anything. On the other hand, since all movement has its beginning in stillness, anything that moves into it is found to have simply returned to its original source. Be still and know that I am. Stillness is the first action of truth. It sounds paradoxical. It is not. Everything comes out of stillness. Stillness has no momentum, which means it can't run into anything. Don't you run into everything all the time? On the other hand, since all movement has its beginning in stillness, anything that moves into it is found to have simply returned to its original source. I'm describing to you a certain possibility that cannot be perceived even as a remote possibility until a person begins to suspect, to some degree, as I am right now, I have absolutely no choice whatsoever other than to attend to whatever cause is presented in front of me as being absolutely required that I give my attention to it. What I want you to understand is that you think you're giving your attention to something. You are not giving your attention to something. Your attention is being commanded. It is being stolen from you. But it is stolen by a consciousness and this sense of I that is so familiar and so dominant and so complete. That's the hardest thing I could possibly get across to you, is that when you're upset about something, do you have any doubt at all about why you're upset? I know beyond the shadow of a doubt. And that I feels strong, it feels resilient, it feels like it knows what it has to do. And that I actually in that moment is complete. But it is complete as an instrument of an incomplete nature that forever has to create a sense of I that gives it the sense of I'm real, I know what's going on, here's what I have to do, until the next I, the next condition, the next person who irritates you, the next problem you have to deal with, the next fear that comes seemingly traipsing down the road. And if you were able to see this, and this is what the exercise is going to be about, if you were able to see that taking place, you'd start to recognize, I am all the time being presented with certain conditions that bring up inside of me parts of myself that I have no idea that are there. The light dwelleth in the darkness comprehendeth it not, and the darkness doesn't know anything about itself at all. Nothing. What's the solution? Take a breath. Exercise summary. Imagine some thousands of years ago, I don't know when it was, whoever invented the first boat, and it wasn't much of a boat, it was probably some papyrus raft or some scrabbled together bunch of driftwood that somebody saw it floating. I thought, I wonder if I could put a bunch of that together and float over to that other island, because it looks a lot better than the one I'm on. And so those people, whoever they were, put together this first little boat, and then they decided that they had to figure out a way to get past the waves. Well, I need something. Maybe a paddle. They didn't know what a paddle was, but they knew they had to propel the boat. So they take their boat and they paddle out to a certain point, and then where they reach this break, there's all these winds and counter currents and tides and all these things, and they can't go any further in their little boat. And without any say in it, they're driven back to the shore. You see this all the time. It happens to be a fact. So after about 1,000 years of doing that, and this is a parallel to our spiritual life, you get outside a certain, the couple waves, and you want to go to you want to visit the celestial island, and you get out a certain distance, the next thing you're back in the shore. So one day they're out there, and somebody says, Have you noticed the wind changes around 5 o'clock? If we could just stay out here till that time, the wind would change. Maybe we would be able to catch the next set of winds that would take us to the island. Well, how are we going to do that, smarty pants? That's what they called each other back in the day. When the currents and the tides are all trying to take us back. He said, I don't know. But I think that's what we have to do. And they didn't have this word, but because I'm coming in the talk, then one day somebody said, you know what? We need an anchor. We need something that isn't conditional, something that can't be moved by the wind, by the tides, by the currents, something that we can anchor ourselves to, like the seabed, that if we could just do that, then all the conditions would come and go, and then we'd be able to make the next leg of our journey, because we anchored ourselves in something that allowed us to withstand the endless causes of this conflict, the endless appearance of problems that come. Can I be anchored in something that allows me to be present to all of those movements without those movements becoming my cause? Are you following the analogy? It's a crude one, but it's the best I've got. We need something to anchor us in place. And that wouldn't even occur to you if you hadn't been moved 10,000 times onto the shoals and crashed into this reef and been beat around. That wouldn't even occur. How many times am I going to agree to be afraid of something in a given day? How many times am I going to think about this person or that problem, or wish the past wasn't the way it was, or that the future could be different, or that my relationships could be other than they are? How many times am I going to make my I the justification of my life? How many times? And when that is clear to you that you've done that enough, you will want to anchor yourself in something that cannot be acted on by the causes of this world passing through and triggering this unconscious nature. And what we're talking about is this idea of anchoring ourselves in the remembrance of ourselves, anchoring ourselves in the awareness of ourselves. I got to end this talk. There is if there wasn't a permanent I, meaning if there wasn't some permanence amidst all of this impermanence, then would we ever know how impermanent we are? Would we? No. So the fact that I can see all of this impermanence proves that there is something that isn't a part of all of those conditions and causes that appear. Please, this is an important point. Yes? So that means that there is something, an I, that is more permanent than all of these impermanent I's in me. You must begin to want to anchor yourself in the, how do I say this? In the I that is the I of real I. So that I want to see more than I want to be. Because I understand that everything I keep trying to become is the product of a cause. Which is why I never become what I imagine. Because it's an effect, and an effect can't change cause. I must have a new choice in this moment where suddenly the phone rings, some news I don't want. Email comes, I don't like it. I watch the news, it upsets me. I look in the mirror, things aren't going well. I must have an understanding that in the moment where I feel this new cause coming on, I must anchor myself in the awareness of the consciousness that is about to be captured again. You have the capacity, do it with me briefly, to be aware of yourself as you are in this moment. You have the capacity to be still enough to register the movement of your own mind. If you're not still, then you are the movement of this mind. This mind cannot still itself. But a mind that sees it is the captive of every movement and cause that comes downstream through changing conditions, that mind and that awareness can begin to produce the anchor. The anchor allows this consciousness to have all of the effects without being moved against itself, and always in a place where it can go beyond itself because it has seen the truth of itself. That's all the time I have and the best I can do for now. Let's take a break.
Welcome back, everyone. I just saw a couple of notes from our team behind the scenes. It says our multicast tonight went just smoothly, and that's what we like to hear. So glad that you're still with us. As we get ready for the second part of our class tonight, our discussion with Guy. Open Q&A time to talk with him and ask your questions. But before we get to that, let me share just two very quick announcements with you. The first of which is that these classes are sponsored by the Life of Learning Foundation, and we are a nonprofit organization here in Southern Oregon that for 30 years has been working to spread these ideas around the world. So again, we appreciate and are always willing to ask for help in that mission. And if you'd like to help us, you can go to our website at guyfinley.org/donate. And there you'll find lots of information on how you can help us. And we thank you for your help in this cause. Secondly, a reminder of our upcoming classes. We have plenty of opportunities during the week to join and learn with us. The next one coming up is Friday night at 7 p.m. Our Friday night classes are ones in which they are led by longtime students of the foundation. So a great opportunity to hear a different perspective from the students who actually work with the ideas that Guy presents, and they'll be working with and sharing ideas from this past Sunday's talk, which was a great talk, a great short key lesson on karma. And so I invite you to join us for that class at 7 p.m. on Friday. And then Saturdays, Saturday morning at 8 a.m., Guy speaks live on insighttimer.com, and you can join him there. The title of the top talk that he's going to be giving on Saturday is Discover the Unseen Source of Negative Thoughts and Feelings. So as you can probably guess from that title, he will continue to be building on the material he presented tonight. So hope you can join us for those opportunities as often as you can. So let's go back to the room, see if Guy is ready for the discussion. And if he is, we'll get started.
Sure.
All right, Guy. Let's see what we have here. I'm going to start with a written question that came in, Guy, during the week. That question came from William. And William asked, do we not need to recognize or define or understand the thoughts and feelings and images that are moving through our awareness?
Funny, William, the synchronicity of that question coming up, even as I was making a note to speak about this later. Can you see that when I have this cause, this struggle to understand something, the struggle to understand is so that I can control the experience of the event, which means the struggle to understand is born out of resistance, and resistance can't understand anything. I don't know what you make of what I just said, but it's a fact, and one day you will see it for yourself. You sit there and you struggle to understand. I want to know. I struggle, and as William said, to recognize, define, or understand. I want to understand these feelings. Why do I want to understand these feelings? I want control over them. I want to know what they are so I know what to do about them. And the I that wants to know about them and what to do about them didn't exist until the conditions triggered that consciousness that was asleep and brings it up so that in the light of that awareness, it might undergo a transformation instead of that consciousness trying to transform itself through the understanding it's going to glean from that cause in that conflict. You know, I don't know when I say certain things, I don't know the efficacy of it or whether or not I'm communicating. And in one respect, I don't care. I don't, in a way, I'm terribly concerned that I'm as clear as I can be in what I want to present to you. But I also understand that if you're not going to get in there and do the work necessary to see that you're always trying to figure out what to do, who to be, how do I handle this, and you actually believe that there's some imperative and something positive in all of that struggle in your life with other human beings, and nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth, because every last one of those causes of the moment has come and commanded you to understand out of fear that if you don't, it's going to get worse or things will get further south in your life. On the other hand, there's the love of understanding. There's the need to understand. And the love of understanding, the love of discovery, the love of self-exploration has no conflict whatsoever with anything. In fact, it is perfectly aligned with real cause and effect, because as a person starts to awaken, they realize that these seeming opposites aren't opposites at all. That the moment I blame for my pain, if I understood it properly, is the revelation of the consciousness responsible for it. And in that revelation, a natural separation takes place that I don't have to struggle to create. It's just part of dying to myself. And you just have to go, look, you know, if your mom and dad were good at all, and most of ours weren't, they were okay. You know, some of us were lucky. But they would have said to you what no one ever said to you, ever, because they didn't know to say it. Listen, my mom called me Guyzy. Listen, Guyzy, you're just going to have to go through all of it. But you need to trust that if you'll go through it the best you can and want to understand as best possible, you'll learn something from every one of these moments. Nobody said that. You know why? Because they didn't do it. Because their cause was the social convention. Their cause was the attempt to control appearance. Their cause was to gather as much possession and power as possible so they could isolate themselves from what they say causes them pain. That was their cause. That's the cause of this world. You must have another cause. And the cause must be to use this unconscious, constant being drawn into the next distraction, the next cause, the next cause. See how many causes you can catch before you go to bed tonight. You'll be stunned, because you'll start to see, I'm not aware of anything that my mind is captured by, because when my mind is captured, there's no one there to know they were captured. Nobody was there. And then I come back. This is what waking up. I come back and suddenly, oh my God, I was captured. Oh my God, I don't want to be captured. I don't want to spend 23 hours and 92 minutes or whatever it is, you know, being asleep. I want to have a life. So you know what? I'm gonna try to anchor myself in at least the wish to catch this moment where suddenly I'm angry, I'm anxious, I'm afraid, and see that cause is trying to bring me into something to fix it. Well, I know I can't fix it. I never have, because that consciousness is a master donut maker. I hope you were here for the first part of the talk. What do they call those things? A bear claw. Yeah, you know, it makes bear claws. I don't want that. I want to be in my life. And then, William, it won't be that you won't be interested in these thoughts and feelings, but the interest will belong to something that wants to see them not use them as some form of control. On we go, John.
All right, we'll go next to our cue guy, and we'll go to Tony.
Okay.
Hello, Tony.
Hi, Guy.
Hi, Tony.
Perfectly said. Everything you said just reminded me of knowledge versus perception. But what I wanted to share with you was something that happened to me recently, I would say in the last 9 months, when my youngest daughter came to visit myself and my husband, and we were sitting at the table. And, you know, to preface this, I really need to state how I raised my children. I was very late in my years when I had my kids and was already beginning to wake up. And so I had this belief that the inner child was divine, was really in touch with the divine. So they were raised knowing that they were here to remind us who we are,
Okay.
that they come straight from source. Okay. So they grew up realizing they were going to be conditioned and blocking the conditioning. And as young adults now, they're definitely expressing the truth and all that, and blocking any conditioned consciousness. But she came to have dinner with us, and at the dinner table, my husband and I, who grew up like I did in the social consciousness that we did, he just said something that annoyed me, and I was in this mode of refusing to be flooded emotionally, refusing to be hurt, refusing to be manipulated, refusing to be gaslighted. You know, all these coping skills that I thought were making me so much better than before. And my daughter just broke down and cried. And I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Don't you see it? Don't you see what you're doing?" And I realized she was telling me in that stillness. And for me, because I love my daughter so much, as we all do, our children, she forced me into this stillness, like you're talking about tonight.
Yes.
And I saw in that stillness that I needed to feel better. I needed to honor my feelings and not dismiss them into this coping mechanisms.
Yes.
That I was not attentive to what matters.
Yes.
You know, and I'm really grateful to her for that. And I feel sometimes we don't pay attention to what matters. And I love what you said tonight about that stillness. And I think it grows from a sense of the divine, a sense of that love.
We can say it that way, but I'd rather say that stillness is the positive effect of the constant negative stimulation of this mind. And one day the mind sees the futility of all that stimulation, sees the futility of resisting or being gaslighted or whatever it is, sees the futility of that. And in seeing the futility, it's effortless, it's dropped. And then that stillness that was always there has the wisdom in it, the intelligence in it, that allows us to start living from it and allowing it to bring us increasingly into this awareness that you've described. So I'm glad for your daughter, I'm glad for your experience, and let's build on it, Tony. Let's keep working. On we go, John.
All right, Guy, I'm going to come on and share a written question that came in from Carl. Carl says, "Is full attention in the present moment enough to cancel any dark thought or feeling without self-observation? Is full attention in the present moment a form of self-observation in one sense? So if I ground myself constantly in the present, is that enough to stop this constant chattering?"
Yes, Carl, we have to be very careful. This is never about canceling some negative experience. That's what Tony was saying. We're not here to resist this negativity. We're here to assist in its revelation. And attention, properly understood, is inseparable from self-observation. Because if I'm actually attending to the whole of the moment, there's no me separate from the experience of it. So I hope that that explains some of what you've asked. Let's go on. There's quite a few hands and people in the queue.
You bet. We'll go next to Deborah Marshall in the queue. Hello, Deborah.
Hello, Guy.
Hi, Deborah.
So I have a question, and it's a little out there. My conditioning and the way that I was taught how to pray has caused me to. Debbie doesn't like to pray anymore. The image in her head is, I am equal to God, and that I can just ask for anything. I can just talk to him. It's just gotten really weird for me.
Yeah.
So what do I do to go forward in? I mean,
I get it. Let me stop you.
okay.
You've come to one of the great places along the path where at last you're beginning to see, I've been this little conditioned machine that was taught a certain way to approach God, and if not in the old way, then through the new way, which I'm equivalent to God, and all I have to do is ask. And you're starting to see the sheer nonsense, the psychopathy in that idea and image of oneself. That's essential. And as it passes, it seems to us, naturally so, that I want to have this relationship with the divine, but I don't know how to do it apart from using the familiar mind and thought to do it. So you've heard this, now you will discover it, Debbie. God knows what you need before you ask.
And I know that.
And you do that. So let me sit with the need. Let me remain aware of the pain and my wish to be free, knowing that I can't free myself. Let me be as present as I can to this need I have to no longer give my life away. I don't know how to stop giving it away, but I sure know the need to stop giving it away. Let me sit with that need. And the more dynamic the need, given the conditions that produce it, the deeper the prayer. As long as I remain in the awareness of that need, I am in that moment in relationship with the light that revealed to me the need, and it will see to that need being answered. Okay, Debbie?
Oh, thank you so much.
You bet. On we go.
On we go next to Josh in the queue. Hello, Josh.
Hi, Guy. I've been calling it over the past 2 years, and occasionally, and you've been pretty helpful for me. So I have something written down a little bit, just a couple sentences. But how can I process pervasive feelings of inadequacy without creating internal conflict? One of the things you said that was to just kind of go through and learn and to not struggle against things. But I'm kind of hung up on how I can figure out what to do without figuring and thinking.
I get it, Josh.
That makes sense.
I understand, man. I do. Josh, what is it that I'm inadequate to? You have to use your mind properly. What is this feeling of inadequacy? Well, let's see. I'm inadequate to my own aspiration. And my own aspiration is this desire to be seen as someone special. I'm inadequate to the fears that I have because I did certain things and now I'm inadequate. I don't know how to deal with them and protect all of myself. I feel inadequate to protect myself. I feel inadequate to tell somebody that I love them. I feel inadequate in the moment where I know I should apologize, but I'm filled with defensiveness. So I feel inadequate to overcome my own nature. Everybody would fill in their own blank, and we all have the same senses. Josh, does that inadequacy exist without some identity that I've imagined is required for me in order to escape myself? See, this is what you have to look and see. I feel inadequate to the moment. Why? Because I want to come out smelling like a rose. I want to win. I don't want to lose. I'm inadequate to the moment. That's what every form of inadequacy is, as a form of self-punishment. Can we use the word, instead of inadequate, can we say this present limitation isn't because of my consciousness, it's because I'm meeting the moment filled with all of this belief that if it doesn't go the way I want it to go, something terrible is going to happen. The limitation, Josh, is always in the consciousness that doesn't understand itself. The transcending the limitation, transcending the inadequacy, requires you journey to the source of the sense of it. You must journey to the source of the sense of inadequacy, and you'll always find it is a divided mind, having first decided what it means to be adequate and successful, and then imagining that, feeling and fearing that it won't live up to its own imagination. When you understand that's the inadequacy, that bad dream will begin to dissolve in the light that reveals it to you. On we go, John.
Okay, Guy. Josh was our last hand in the queue. I have a written question from Namita that I think we can end with.
Okay.
Namita asks, what is the relationship between attention and energy? There are days when I feel lack of energy for reasons beyond my understanding. Also, why do you call meditation medication? Doesn't meditation help bring about stillness?
So does drugs. Question first. What's the relationship between attention and energy? There are days when I feel I lack of energy for reasons beyond my understanding. Come on, just a couple more minutes, guys. What's wrong with having a lack of energy? I guarantee you've never asked yourself that question. What's wrong with, I just don't have energy today. But you have to, you've got to go, you've got to meditate, you need energy to do this. Get up, go, do something. You can't afford to be passive. You can't find a creature on this planet that doesn't rotate through active and passive, including the seasons in which that activity and passivity is recognized and realized. And that of every passive moment is already connected to a new form of activity that's intended to flow into that, but it never does because we make false activity in our fear of being passive and lost and unable to produce. On the other hand, and not contrary to what I just said, why don't you find out what's the nature of this weakness? Here I am, I don't want to do a damn thing today. I don't want to move. I don't want to think. I want nothing to do with anything. Just leave me alone. No energy. You've all known that too, haven't you? Well, what's that about? I don't know, because it becomes my cause, meaning that I begin to resist that, and then I'm captured by this feeling that I shouldn't be like that, or I have to somehow power my way through. Both of those solutions are as empty as the results. On the other side of the resistance is the flow. Write it down. On the other side of the resistance is the flow. What does that mean? If I will sit and live with this resistance and not resist it, then I will understand something of the conditions that have produced it. And I won't be a captive of the condition, I'll be the observer of it. I'll be anchored properly in this understanding, this new eye that's capable of seeing, this recalcitrant eye, this eye that just wants to go to sleep, this eye that just doesn't want to be bothered. These are not you, but they become you when you identify with them. And the second part, why do I call meditation medication? Because most of what people do in meditation is to escape the awareness of themselves. Not to go into it, but to escape it. Anything we do to escape the awareness of ourselves, or even to produce, and this is definitive. See, what happens, a person starts meditating. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. You have no idea. I spent 7 years like alone in a cave doing nothing but breathing in meditation for like 12 hours a day. I promise you, I know what I'm talking about. The meditation becomes the medication. I become identified and fall in love with the endorphins that produces inside of me, and then believe that my mellow state proves that I've become a true conscious human being. And I'm conscious and mellow as long as I don't leave my meditation room. And the minute someone walks in and disturbs my meditation, I realize it was medication because it didn't change me. Real meditation is inseparable from your awareness of the moment. That's what real meditation is, which means I can meditate 24/7 if I have the attention to do it. But I don't have the attention to do it because my attention is always on some distraction of the moment and the cause that it presents to me. So now you can put those two together, yeah? And on that, good night.